Welcome to Sports QuaranTV with Chris Dobson, Jerry Green. Of course, we really appreciate you guys tuning in week after week. We are still in COVID protocol. Jerry, I noticed you guys even had a case pop up or case or two this week, so you're not as safe as you thought you were.
Well, things happen, eh? But you're still flaming red down there, I see.
Oh, yeah. I'm hoping to see some things happen now, actually, which brings us up. We have a lot to talk about here in such a short period of time, and you brought up the red piece. We are finally going to see some QMJHL action in the Maritimes. Of course, Charlottetown and Nova Scotia cleared to play against each other. First and foremost, you got to tip your cap to the way that the governments have handled the protocol there. They're going to do it, of course, with no fans in the building. But either way, it is an exciting time. Hockey is back in the Maritimes.
No, it is very exciting, Chris. And just this past weekend, the Q teams, the 12 Q teams, had their 4 bubbles, of which 3 teams played in 4 locations and played each other, got a couple games under their belts, and that seemed to go all right. And it only goes to reason, Charlottetown's been crystal clear. They'll have to come through New Brunswick to get to Nova Scotia, but that's fine. And Halifax and Cape Breton and the province of Nova Scotia has done a real good job and a consistent job here lately. So it only made sense. Now we just have to get New Brunswick in a stable situation, and we can get it all rolling again.
You're absolutely right. And of course, the QMJHL trade period, which was extended, has finally come to a close as of the 25th. Some interesting moves were made at the 11th hour, I guess you could say. First and foremost, we're going to start, basically about 90 minutes away from both of us here at the St. John Sea Dogs and Trevor Georgie. Interesting big move out of there, sending first overall pick Joshua Watt to Sherbrooke for 3 firsts and a second. Again, you saw rumors speculating. You follow social media. You see, Joshua Watt didn't come back after the Christmas break. You don't know. But again, we're not there. We don't know the situation. Mm-hmm. But overall, I was shocked to see if Trevor Georgie's trying to build this contending team and what they're doing, how the first overall pick who doesn't want to be there. But either way, great haul for Trevor Georgie and the St. John Sea Dogs to continue building this team.
Well, I thought I read the other day they have 6 first-round picks. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
And now some of those might go back to Sherbrooke, but the rumor or the possibility was that Samuel Poulin might be coming to St. John and some picks for Joshua Waugh. But as it worked out, again, St. John has still added some pieces, Chris. I mean, the other day they added Ryan Francis and they added another 20-year-old goaltender. What do you make of that?
The goaltending situation, which is really interesting, because we interviewed Georgie over the summer, I believe it was, and we were talking about what his plan was and what he was looking to do, and he talked about Pat Node and what he was looking to accomplish. And I think I saw a tweet go out last week as well. St. John has now fired out 7 draft picks so far on trades for their 4th 20-year-old goaltender on the season, which I think is a bit of a stretch. I'm not the guy building this team, but overall, if you think you found your guy, you make the moves, you bring him in, I think they're looking to have him bring him to the promised land, but I'm just not sure. But you talked about Ryan Francis and that trade coming on in. And excellent. I think that's why I was confused. It was a great trade. Absolutely. But then to see a guy like him come in and to see a guy like Waugh leave it was a little confusing for me.
Yeah. But wasn't there another fellow that they added that, was going to play South, Chris, and but still a 16, maybe even a 17-year-old that they're going to insert in their lineup? And that's where you get Ryan Francis coming in. He comes in that Dawson Stairs trade that he goes to Cape Breton and a couple of picks. And also earlier they lost Alex Drovers. So they had some holes in their lineup that Francis will fill one. Will the other guy fill the other? Was his last name Samuel, or do you remember who it was?
I don't remember his name, but you are right, because they had that big, because they had another NCAA report show up, or another U.S. player, and Trevor's done great at that. His management's coming on in, and it all started right out of the hop when the season started, of course, making sure that Peter Reynolds signed, that everything they had to do. But yeah, this guy here, along with Ryan Francis, are to fill those holes that were left over by, guys like Alex Drover, and you're absolutely right, Jerry.
But doesn't it smell, Chris, like preparing for next year, St. John? Because, again, those picks that they got for Joshua Waugh probably are going to go back, and they'll be converted into players or bodies that could be prominent parts to fit in within their, your Poiriers and your Villeneuves will be 19 by then for next season, and that'll be a whole group of them there that are going to be that 17 to 19-year-old, and Poirier and Villeneuve leading the way. That'll be prime for a championship.
when this season started, there was a lot of confusion and questions as to whether or not how they were going to get the season off the ground. Trevor Georgie was very adamant about, so, again, he said it here. He said that if I had my way, he'd go back to back to back. But based off the moves you're seeing taking place right now, I don't think anyone's touching Valdor. If anybody can see anything happening, which we'll talk about that in just a quick second. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Georgie looks like he's setting up hard for next year and the year after that as well, because they will be stacked and he's got picks to make moves.
Valdor is doing similar to what Moncton did last year, in which they had a number of the top picks from the 16 draft. Moncton did in their lineup, including Rodrigues and Grew and McIsaac and so forth. And this year, it seems like Valdor has got every top pick from 2017, excluding, of course, Alexis Lafreniere.
And Xavier Padon. But yeah, you're absolutely right. They have 4 of the top 6. I mean, they acquired Sam Poulin, which was a big splash at the end. I didn't know where these guys were. I didn't know where they were pulling picks out between Pelche, Spence, Poulin, Nathan Lagaré. I mean, the list goes on, but I mean, you got to tip your cap to Valdor and what they've done. I mean, it's absolutely outstanding. But yeah, so like I said, I mean, and there has to be COVID rules in place for these trades. I mean, you got to think Moncton got burned hard last year with the moves they made, but nobody's signing these deals if there's not a season to be played. But according to the commissioner of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, he is awarding the President's Cup this year. Come hell or high water, it's happening.
We don't know the date, Chris, but yes, I think they're determined to do that. But the other part of it is, more and more, I'm really doubting whether or not there's going to be a Memorial Cup. Yes, hell or high water, like you say, maybe a President's Cup trophy does get presented this year to somebody. Who knows when the date might be, but I'm really starting to be concerned about whether or not a Memorial Cup will ever happen.
I fully agree with you, but all that matters is QMJHL hockey in the Maritimes is back. Hopefully we can get rid of the yellow here in New Brunswick, and we can get these teams off and on the ground. And once we're back in the yellow, Jerry, who knows, maybe we'll be back in the building too. So either way, I'm excited for that. Let's stay on the ice, Jerry, but change leagues. Let's talk about the National Hockey League, because last week we were talking about the Pierre-Luc Dubois situation going on in Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people had him speculated going to Montreal. Turns out he ended up going to your Winnipeg Jets. Are you, first and foremost, as a fan, take the analytics out of it, as a fan, are you happy with the trade?
As a fan, yes, because I don't think they were going to. Laine was on the last year of his contract. Well, it was a bridge contract for $7 million, and I don't think they were going to have the money to sign him next year. Number two was he didn't really want to leave Winnipeg, but he wanted to be on the number one line, and they weren't going to put him on the number one line. Kyle Connor has been situated there. They've tried line A at the top line, which consists of Scheifele and Wheeler, and it's never seemed to fit in there properly. But they had a 1A and a 1B, and I don't know why he wasn't happy with that. But he's a bona fide goal scorer. Columbus is going to have great time with him, but the problem Columbus is going to have is whether or not they're going to have somebody to play with him and can set him up. I don't think they have a designated great playmaker there. Dubois comes to Winnipeg. His father, Eric, who I met, used to be the head coach in Baie-Comeau, is now the assistant coach in Manitoba with the Moose. He's thrilled that his son coming there. And Chris, you got to think that had a bearing whether or not Dubois wanted to come to Winnipeg or not.
Yeah, I mean, the rumors were Montreal, Winnipeg, or Anaheim. Those are the 3 teams that he apparently really wanted to go to. Of course, wanted to go to Montreal because of his background and where he wanted to play. But overall, I'm thrilled to see Pierre-Luc Dubois end up in Winnipeg. And I mean, Jets fans should be excited. But what I want to pick your brain about, and of course, this is what makes these media conversations exciting, is you see these rumors floating around, and now these reports are coming on out. And it all started when Blake Wheeler himself tweeted out that he wished he would have handled his relationship with Patrick Laine better. And then all of a sudden you're hearing these reports coming from reporters saying that Laine was bullied by guys like Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler as a captain. I mean, if you do some research into this thing, I mean, overall, that can't be the message you want out in the media right now, because you're about to your season just started. You as a Jets fan, I mean, everything just seems suspect to me. And I mean, you've got a bona fide goal scorer in Patrick Laine. Something wasn't adding up. Jets fan, and I think a lot of rumors floating around that can you have another stud Finnish player being recognized in Winnipeg that's not named Teemu Selanne? I mean, can you do it?
No, I've not heard those stories, Chris, and I would be very disappointed if that was the case, if that was the culture there in Winnipeg. Dubois comes there with some baggage too, Chris. I mean, It's being hung around his neck, that final shift he had with Columbus, going out on really not doing anything, being disinterested, and then never played the rest of the game. But the whole dynamic of requesting a trade, and that's how this all started. Laine never really requested a trade, but he wanted to play on the first line, and they weren't sure if he was going to re-sign. Where Dubois really did say he wanted to trade, and the last shift he took as a Blue Jacket was not something you want to keep in the archives.
Absolutely not. I mean, it's no secret. I mean, him and Tortorella had issues. You've seen the highlights over and over and over. Maybe a change of scenery is exactly what they needed, but it's starting to sniff a little bit to me, very similar to the Jonathan Drouin situation in Tampa Bay before he got moved to Montreal, of course, for Sergachev. But overall, I hope this trade works out for everybody because honestly, both players are phenomenal. And I think, it's a fair, even deal on both sides.
But Chris, the throw in there, and I've watched him very closely, is Roslovic, who's an American, and I liked him in a Jet uniform. They
from
just
Columbus,
didn't have,
I believe.
Yes, he's from Columbus. He just didn't have a spot in the top six, so he's down in the bottom six. But you put him in the top six in Columbus, and you see a guy that's smart and quick and aggressive, not the biggest in stature, but I think he'll make an impact there in Columbus. So that was a good throw in for them. And it was a good way for Winnipeg to then dispatch another fellow who figured he should have been in the top six and was coming up to a contract.
Absolutely right. And I mean, it's like I said, I'll leave it at this, and that is, I think it's a fair deal as long as they can extend Dubois. If they can get him to do that, he's having a good time, which I don't think will be a problem. You talked about Roslovic. I mean, he's already extended his stay in Columbus. I think he's already signed like a 3-year extension. But then you've got Patrick Laine. What's he going to do? How are him and Tortorella going to get along?
Yes.
It'll be fun to watch. Another thing that's been fun to watch, and I told you before this, I don't want to go out on a Habs tangent here, but I want to give props to the Vancouver Canucks. That young team, I watched that little mini Habs series, which, by the way, I love these 3-game series. I think it's great. 3 games, 4 nights, let them play it out. This young Canucks team is fun to watch.
No, absolutely. I'm enjoying that, the new structure of the schedule being that, if Montreal or Toronto is going all the way to Vancouver, they're not going to play 1 and come back. They'll play at least 2, and it's shown that they're playing 3. Matter of fact, tonight, Winnipeg hosted Edmonton the other night. Edmonton stayed over last night and are playing there again tonight. It's a matter of doing these combo scheduling. But Vancouver has been exciting to me, and I've liked watching Zach McEwen. He got into the lineup, and I liked the way he played. He was aggressive. He had scoring opportunities. He's a great forechecker. We know that. I loved watching him. But a team that I haven't got to see much of is Calgary, and they're sitting there, and I don't think they've played that many games. And I think they're a team that needs to be, a team that could contend. But right now, you have Montreal and Toronto on top, and that's what most Canadians would like.
No, you're absolutely right. And I love the Zach McEwen shout out, Jerry. I think it's great. Just, it's his whole story and going to how he got to where he is today is absolutely phenomenal. But overall, I love hearing that. But speaking of former Moncton Wildcats who are absolutely tearing it up right now, you got to give love to our old buddy Connor Garland.
Yeah.
Great 6 points in 6 games down there in Arizona. No surprise whatsoever.
It's amazing what he's done. We knew what he did at the junior level, but even before he got to the junior level, whether or not he was going to be a good junior, then it was, well, can he be a good pro? And put him down in the AHL, let him get seasoned, let him get mature. My goodness, he's a smart player. He's seen the game so clearly, and he's making it look easy. And he's just a little water bug, and very impressive the way he's developed and the way he's come along to be a real good NHLer.
He attributes a lot of his pro success to his former roommate in Tucson, Cunningham, of course, who lost a limb. So he helped him. Anyways, he used that from a moral standpoint. I'm just looking at the clock here now. We got to move on. I want to talk about the NFL as well. We're not going to go into our Super Bowl picks yet because we're going to do that next week. But I do want to talk about the 2 games we saw this weekend. KC and Buffalo wasn't as good a game as I think everybody was expecting it to be. Of course, the question mark was going to be, was Patrick Mahomes going to play? But the game I want to talk about first, of course, was Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers, Tampa Bay, Green Bay. I have so many thoughts on this in regards to Aaron Rodgers and his offensive line, which is absolute garbage. Anytime you will get sacked 5 times. And how many times have you seen Tom Brady throw 3 interceptions in a game?
Well, I think they jinxed him. They just before he did throw the first interception, they had said he'd gone, I don't know, was it 359 or 259 attempts without having an interception in the postseason, I think. I can't remember what it was, but it was a long streak, and then he throws almost 3 consecutive interceptions. But it really did come down, Chris, and this is the thing I love about football. It can come down to one little series, and to have the ball on the 8-yard line. And I know it was only to tie, because then they would have to get the 2-point conversion as well. But I thought Aaron Rodgers' judgment on that third down play, he should have, hopefully he was going to run instead of throw. But then to bring out the field goal unit, I just don't figure the logic. Okay, Chris, let's say you don't make it on 4th down. Well, you got Tampa Bay pinned, and you count on your defense to get them 3 and out, and then you're going to get the ball at midfield again, and you're going to try it again. If you kick, if you get the touchdown but don't get the 2-point conversion, again, you still have the opportunity to kick a field goal to win. But to kick the field goal and still require to get a touchdown, I just didn't think made sense.
Well, Rodgers said that he thought they were going on 4th. So I think that was the question mark for him.
Sure he would, Chris. Why wouldn't any logical person think that?
Well, I mean, it's easy for us to say behind the comfort of our computers in New Brunswick, but overall, no, I agree with you. I think the whole world thought that was happening.
It makes no sense to kick a field goal. It makes no sense.
And this is what I hate. But kudos to him for talking to the media when the game was over. But when all these cameras and microphones are in his face and they're asking his opinion and his thoughts, and, athletes are finely tuned machines. And yes, you can give them all the media training in the world. But if you start getting in their face about what your plans are for next season after a heartbreaking loss like that, and of course he makes the comment, I don't know what the future holds. People were speculating maybe he's not going to play in Green Bay next year, which I think, okay, everyone just sit down, take 24 hours, calm down and relax. I saw him on the Pat McAfee show this week, and he talked exactly just that. He said, look, I don't see any scenario where I'm not in Green Bay next year, but don't rule it out. You got to think teams are going to be calling.
I know, Chris, and I would think somebody made the interesting comment, how many NFC championships does Aaron Rodgers have? And they said 1. He's got 1 Super Bowl. How many NFC championships now does
Tom Brady
have? He has 1. He has 1 as well, because they never faced each other in the NFC. Of course, the only time they would ever face each other was in the Super Bowl. They'd never face each other in the playoffs. So that's why they've never gone head-to-head before. They've gone maybe head-to-head in the regular season, and I don't even know how many times they've done that. But again, the amazement of Tom Brady and his ability at 40 years old to do what he's doing. He had 40 touchdowns this year, Chris, and to drop that one in. And this was a key play for me too. And I don't know what Green Bay's defense is doing at the end of the first half, the drop that pass in for the touchdown after they went on 4th down and they thought they were going to kick. And then to come out and get the turnover to start the second half and score then too. Those were 2 big plays, 2 big turning points in the football game, which I thought Green Bay had full control of.
You're absolutely right. And of course, there was a couple of suspect calls, if you would, some frustrations. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and crap on refs because that's not what I do. Overall, it's tough to do. I just have an issue with where you let things go all game and then you basically predicted the outcome, because as soon as that play happened right before the half, I mean, anyways, yeah, I'm not going to go into it.
But sorry, Chris, Kansas City team, I don't think anybody stops them. I don't think even the Tampa defense could track down Mahomes. And this was an interesting stat I saw the other day, Chris, and I did not realize it. Do you know how tall Patrick Mahomes is?
I do not.
He's 6'3" and 230 pounds. Do you know how big Tom Brady is?
I do not.
6'4", 225. I did not know that Patrick Mahomes was 6'3". And for a man that size to move like he does, does he look like 6'3" to you?
No.
No, he doesn't.
No.
And the ability that he has to move the ball and those 2 wicked weapons he has, and even though everybody knew the ball was going to Kelsey, they couldn't cover him. And anything was near him, he caught. I just think Kansas City has a solid team and a real good opportunity to repeat.
Travis Kelce is one of my favorite players in the league. You talk about, you watch him amp a lot of people up and how he does the things he does. Actually, I'm going to bring something up. Speaking of that, one of the coolest things I saw was Patrick Mahomes on the sidelines after that fumble, early on in the game, came on over to calm him down. He was very upset when Hardman, he was very fired up. And then you see exactly Patrick Mahomes comes down, says, buddy, like, we're good. Play your game. We'll be fine. And they come on out and they run the gauntlet. But overall,
well, and they gave him the ball a couple of times to make it happen.
Very much so. Very much so.
Yes.
And that's exactly how it should go. But overall, you're right. I don't think anybody's stopping the Kansas City Chiefs. I think they're going back to back. It looked like Patrick Mahomes' turf toe was absolutely just fine. But overall, he is fun to watch. He's our young generation's Tom Brady right now. I have an old colleague of mine, his kids, he's a diehard Patriots fan. He grew up, he was a Bledsoe guy and then a Tom Brady guy. And those kids, of course, are firing all over him because of Patrick Mahomes. And I said to him, I was like, look, that's what they look up to when everybody watched and looked up to Tom Brady coming in. Like the whole Tom Brady, Peyton Manning situation, like you saw two greats go toe to toe, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers. But now Patrick Mahomes is the guy, and the young guys have guys like him to look up to. But overall, I'm excited. Like I said, I don't want to get into the Super Bowl because we're going to talk about that next week specifically. But I'm excited. We have a Super Bowl in 2 weeks from now.
What about Buffalo? I just thought I think offensively the lights were too bright, and I was disappointed in the performance of the quarterback. I just thought he seemed like he was a little too hyped up or maybe a little bit too under pressure and didn't perform as well as I was hoping.
I fully agree. I think Josh Allen did not play the game that a lot of people thought Josh Allen could play. I think they were looking for a little more fight from him. Obviously, Stephon Diggs and, all the weapons they have. And you got to kudos to Buffalo and what they've done this year. I mean, it, in my opinion, should have been Indy that was there. But, hey, that's okay. We'll worry about that next year. That's not my problem. But overall, it is what it is. Buffalo will be back. They'll be strong next year. Don't kid yourself. Buffalo is going to be a good football team for years to come.
So if you look at it, Brady has to go through Brees and he had to go through Rodgers, both of them on the road. And what do? They get to play at home for Super Bowl 50. What is it? 55?
55.
This
is embarrassing. I don't know this right now.
I think it's 55. Isn't it LV? It's LV, isn't it?
Yeah, it sounds about right. Yeah,
that's 55.
Yeah, actually, it's funny. I was going back watching all the old Super Bowl halftime shows the other day. One of my favorite ones still was Prince. And when he started singing Purple Rain, the rain was coming down. I thought it was perfect.
Yes.
Anyways,
and it is 55.
Yeah, 55 is right. Sorry for everybody that, it's been a long week. Overall, I want to talk about Major League Baseball and the Hall of Fame quickly. We've got about 4.5 minutes to go. The Hall of Fame was today. Nobody got in. Roger Clemens, Curt Schilling, and Barry Bonds, of course. Curt Schilling, this is why I want to talk about this. Interesting announcement. He says he wants to take his name off of the ballot. He's done. He doesn't want to be. Next year, of course, would have been his final year to be on the ballot to get into the Hall of Fame. You need 75% vote to get in. I think he was at like 71. The reason I'm bringing this up to you is I think it's suspect, hands down, only because of maybe some of the actions he's portrayed off the field, over his, possibly supporting groups that maybe necessarily doesn't agree with mainstream media in today's world. Do you think that has a place when it comes to voting in the Hall of Fame, or should his playing be what dictates that?
Yeah, I know. And these writers that vote, and again, Schilling's been at it for, this would be his 9th time, 9 years, he, Clemens, and Bonds trying to get into the Hall of Fame. And the writers that are involved with this, so are the guys that, used to bang away on typewriters. I think some of them are still the ones who vote on this, the writers and the reporters that cover Major League Baseball. And it's such a tough debate. It should be on the numbers. In Clemens and in Bonds' case, being reportedly enhanced productivity and or performance is a little bit different to me than what somebody's ideology might be and what he thinks of certain things in the universe or in the world, and how he portrays himself in the public. It's such a fine line, Chris. And I don't know what the right answer is. I can see me as if I was voting thinking, I don't even like Schilling, so no, I'm not voting for him just because he supported so-and-so or said this about somebody. It can be so subjective.
No, you're absolutely right. And I mean, this is a debate you and I could probably have for a half hour. And I don't want to go into too much thread on it, but I will say this. I think when it comes to the Hall of Fame, if you were a cheater, and of course he went on record saying, these are the things I didn't do. I didn't cheat. I didn't do this. I didn't abuse my spouse. I didn't, I played baseball and I played baseball very well. I think I don't think he should be penalized for that. Next year will be interesting, of course, with David Ortiz and Barry Bonds back on the ballot. Of course, they're going to talk about performance enhancing, which is a whole other story we can talk about next week too. But overall, these guys, Barry Bonds, David Ortiz, get into the Hall of Fame. It's going to bring up the Pete Rose conversation, because whether you try to avoid it, people are going to bring it up. That's how the world works. And of course, social media is out there and people are going to let you know how they feel.
And now after, I don't know how many years it's been, Chris, God bless Pete Rose. He really didn't do anything to not be in there. The report, yes, he gambled. Did he gamble on his own games? No, they don't believe him. But in the big scheme of things, in 2021, Pete Rose gambling on games is minor in my eyes.
Oh my! Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. No ifs, ands, or buts. And I'll tell you right now, if Barry Bonds and David Ortiz get into the Hall of Fame, and I'm a Red Sox fan, so trust me, I think Ortiz should be there. But if Barry Bonds and David Ortiz get into the Hall of Fame, Pete Rose deserves to. I mean, he deserved to be there before this. But anyways, we've only got a minute left, Jerry.
And it came up again. It came up again. Poor old Hank Aaron passed away, and it came up again that everybody thinks Hank Aaron is still the one that has the record for home runs.
You're absolutely right. And a lot of people are going to have that asterisk forever. And of course, you losing a guy like Hank Aaron, Hammer and Hank, as soon as you lose a guy like him, it shocked the baseball world. Jerry, I don't want to cut you short here. We've got about 45 seconds, and we've got to bring up, of course, the legend of Kobe Bryant. Of course, it's been 1 year since the passing. So I watched a bunch of tribute videos to Kobe today. Hard to believe it's been a year since the world's lost such a prolific, not just NBA player, but basically a philanthropist as well.
Yeah, it was the start of a crappy year is what it was, Chris. In January of last year, it was a tip of what a crappy year we were going to have, and it started with the loss of Kobe.
You heard it. It was a crappy year. Like I said, 2021 doesn't have to be the best year in the world. It doesn't even have to be close to it. It just has to be better than 2020. Yeah. Guys, that's going to wrap it up for Jerry and I. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we will see everybody next week.